In the skies above New York, a businessman named Tom is preparing to skydive from his private jet when he is approached by his son David, who is trying to resolve issues with employees. However, Tom doesn't care about that, and after jumping and using his parachute for a while, he lands on top of his company's building, Firebrand, where he is greeted by reporters and his employees. At that moment, one of the journalists asks if the businessman already knows about the Chicago Tower, a building that belongs to a rival corporation, which intends to surpass them in height. Upon hearing this, Tom replies that this is not possible, and leaves, meeting with his fellow executives in his office. During the meetings, his partners explain that the construction plan for the new building will be extremely risky, and they say they should sell part of the company's shares to ensure security. Despite all these reasons, Tom's ego won't allow this to happen, and he rejects the idea, saying he wants to make his mark in history by owning the tallest building in North America. Later, Tom arrives home and talks to his wife Laura, who scolds him for not yet buying a birthday present for Rebecca, the youngest daughter of the family. Trying to explain himself, he says that he has had a difficult day and has not had time for that. The next day, Tom walks with his daughter through the park, and Rebecca tells him she would like a cat for her birthday present. Confused, the businessman reminds the girl that the building where they live does not allow pets, but she knows very well that her father is none other than the owner of the entire building. Realizing that there is no way to refuse her request, Tom says he will think about the possibility of adopting a cat, and later, he meets with his partners so they can help him decide on a good gift for the young girl. Meanwhile, Laura is arranging the decorations for Rebecca's birthday party when she receives a visit from Madison, Tom's ex-wife, who shows up with her daughter Nicole. During the conversation, the woman reveals that because Laura has forgotten her daughter's birthday so many times, she should divorce the billionaire as soon as possible, saying that when she made that decision in the past, it made her life much happier. Despite the recommendation, the current wife does not believe those words, and realizing that she will not be able to convince Laura, Madison decides to leave. In the meeting room of the Firebrand building, Tom receives a call from his wife. Realizing he is late, the man drives at full speed to the nearest pet shop so he can buy a pet cat for Rebecca. Halfway there, Tom receives an alert from Ian, saying he has a meeting at that very moment, and annoyed by the message, he throws his cell phone at the dashboard. As a result, the device ends up changing the destination route, leading the businessman to a strange alley, where dozens of cats appear around him and begin to observe him. Believing he is in the right place, Tom enters the premises, and after encountering an even larger number of cats, he is greeted by Perkins, the store owner. In a hurry, the businessman asks the salesman to give him one of his cats, but the man replies that, in fact, it is the animals that choose their owner. At that moment, one of the cats climbs onto the counter to interact with Tom, and Perkins says that he may have liked the man, since that cat has a certain affinity for troubled souls. In addition, the salesman reveals that the animal has already used up 4 of its 9 lives, and suddenly, the animal turns on the television with the remote control, showing the news about the Chicago building, which has already reached a height greater than the Firebrand Tower. Outraged, Tom turns off the television, and after choosing a bowl, he makes the payment and prepares to leave with his new cat. Before he does so, the billionaire receives a call, but Perkins tells him that he should not answer his phone because he is already late for the party. Upon hearing this, Tom is frightened, and as soon as he hears thunder, he leaves before the rain intensifies. However, before he can go home and attend Rebecca's birthday party, the businessman is forced to go to his office once again. As soon as he arrives at the parking lot, Tom realizes that he cannot leave the cat in the car, so he takes the elevator with him to meet Ian on the terrace. Trying to calm his boss down, the employee says he has an idea of how they can take the lead in the competition for the tallest building, but the businessman refuses to listen to him. Tom says that if Ian hadn't disrupted the meetings with his ideas about selling the company's shares, planning the construction of the building would have been easier, and at that moment, Tom receives a call from his wife. In a rage, the billionaire drops the cat cage on the floor and answers his wife, yelling at her to wait until he gets home. Suddenly, a powerful lightning bolt strikes the terrace, destroying part of the antenna and causing the men to fall backwards. Thanks to this, the billionaire is thrown away, ending up on the edge of the building, and when faced with his boss in that situation, Ian decides to take revenge and states that he will not be fired by him. As a result, the madman does not extend his hand to Tom, who ends up falling from the building and colliding with the scaffolding, which throws him into one of the floors along with his cat. Hours later, paramedics rescue the businessman, who is taken to the emergency room along with his pet. At that moment, Tom realizes that he is still awake and becomes confused, as he seems to be seeing himself in the third person. Looking around, the businessman realizes that for some reason, His soul has been sent to his cat's body, since his human body is unconscious. As soon as she arrives at the hospital and hears the doctor's diagnosis, Laura becomes concerned and takes the cat to her children, without even imagining that Tom is desperately trying to communicate. Before leaving, Ian approaches the group and apologizes for the situation, saying that he tried to hold back his boss but ended up being prevented from saving him, and Tom is outraged by those lies. While the family goes to see the unconscious Tom, the cat is left alone in the waiting room, and at that moment, Perkins appears. Furious, Tom orders the man to make his life go back to normal, but the cat seller asks him to calm down, because if his real body ends up perishing, he will be stuck in that form permanently. This only makes the billionaire even more terrified, but Perkins replies that there are reasons why this happened and says goodbye to him. Later, Laura returns home with Rebecca, and they release the cat so he can explore the residence. Trying to find a way to warn his family about what is happening, Tom tries to grab one of the pens on his office desk, but without success, and is disappointed to realize that he cannot even use his tablet to communicate. Hours later, Laura and Rebecca go to bed, and after spending some time trying to open one of his bottles of alcohol and consuming large quantities, he walks around the house clumsily. In the morning, Tom tries to find a way to reverse the situation and decides to look for Perkins, but is stopped by his daughter, who calls him Mr. Hairball. Tom continues to try to show the family what is happening, but Laura does not notice any of the signs, and at that moment, she receives a visit from David. While his stepmother prepares dinner, the man walks to his father's office and tries to find a way to continue running the company and solve the problem of the height difference between the buildings. Sometime later, Madison and Nicole show up, and when they see the cat, the girl's dogs start chasing him, causing chaos throughout the house. During the chase, Madison goes to her son and tries to convince him to give up on becoming someone like his father, but David doesn't listen to her and continues his work. To end the chaos, Rebecca picks up the cat, and now that the dog's leashes are tied to the stairs, Tom is able to continue his attempts to communicate. At that moment, the women begin to talk about how the billionaire was never a present father and husband, and Madison says that this is why Laura met Josh. Upon hearing this, Tom is confused, and when he sees his ex-wife's purse, he decides to take revenge and uses it as a litter box, making the woman furious and causing her to start chasing him. The cat quickly runs into Rebecca's arms, and now that the confusion is over, Laura picks up the ball of yarn from the floor, preventing the family from noticing that Tom had written his name with the wool. Outraged by all this, Madison says they need to get rid of that cat, and the comment makes the girl furious. Trying to calm the situation, Laura says she can buy her a new bag, and later during dinner, both families talk about Tom's abnormal behavior, who went several days without sleep due to his work obsession. Noticing the way everyone talks about him, the businessman becomes sad and remains silent for the rest of the evening. The next morning, Laura comes across a trail of shredded papers around the house, and as she approaches, she sees a flyer with Perkins' contact number. So, she decides to call the man to help her train the cat, and meanwhile, David holds a meeting at the Firebrand building, where he tries to convince the other partners to carry out a reform so that they can beat their rival company. However, after being completely manipulated by Ian's words, the executives reject the idea, saying they can no longer lose money to support Tom's crazy ideas. Furious, David orders everyone to stop talking like that, since his father is the real owner of Firebrand, but when he realizes that none of the executives will change their minds, he gives up trying to convince them. At home, Tom receives a visit from Perkins, who reminds him that he needs to behave, as he may remain a cat for the rest of his life if his human body loses its energy. Despite this, the businessman does not feel threatened and says he will never eat that disgusting cat food or use the litter box. In order to convince him, Perkins picks up the animal and takes him to Laura, saying that they may have to perform a neutering surgery. Upon hearing this, Tom flies into a rage, and the cat whisperer explains to the woman that if the cat continues to refuse to eat and use his litter box, this will be a great option. Realizing he has no choice, the businessman follows Perkins' recommendations. Even though he is upset about living that way, Tom begins to live like a real cat, becoming increasingly embarrassed as time goes by. One day, Laura receives a call from Josh, who asks her to meet him at the address he sends her. Believing that he is being betrayed by his wife, Tom becomes enraged and decides to take revenge by stealing the keys from his wife's purse. Irritated, Laura chases the animal around the house, and when cornered, he is forced to return the keys, allowing his wife to leave. Determined to find out where his wife is going, Tom takes a big leap toward the entrance awning and breaks into the vehicle. At the Firebrand building, David comes across a meeting room full of bankers and confronts Ian, who is trying to sell his father's company. However, The trader is not intimidated and says that when they manage to complete the sale, Tom's family will have billions of dollars in cash, so they should accept the offer. Later, Laura meets Josh in front of a large mansion, and believing that they are about to have a romantic moment, the cat screams in rage. Realizing that she has been followed by the animal, the woman becomes enraged and declares that she will no longer continue with all of this. Confused, Tom begins to look around, and when he comes across a for sale sign, he feels embarrassed to realize that his wife was just looking at some properties with a real estate agent. At that moment, Josh tries to calm Laura down, saying that he believed they already had a deal, but the woman says she no longer intends to leave her husband. Curious, the agent asks the reason for this sudden change in her decision, and Laura explains that after Tom fell into a coma, she was touched, since the last thing Tom did before the accident was to get a cat for their daughter. Upon hearing this, the businessman says that he has always loved his wife, but she cannot hear him, and suddenly the woman receives a call from one of the doctors. At home, Laura tells Rebecca that Tom remains unconscious, but since he has shown no improvement since the first day he was admitted, there is a good chance he will not wake up again. However, the girl is not worried about this and tries to calm her mother down, saying that her father has been working very hard lately and all he needs is a long period of rest. Minutes later, Tom approaches to check on what his daughter is doing and is moved when he notices that Rebecca is watching a video of herself dancing with her father when she was younger. Realizing that he should have been a better father, the businessman regrets his actions throughout his life, and to cheer up the girl, they start playing with one of the balloons. After that, Rebecca pets the cat on her lap when she receives a visit from Nicole, who asks her to wash her face and stop crying. So, the young woman goes to the bathroom, but when he notices that Nicole is about to post a photo of her daughter crying, Tom becomes enraged and knocks the cell phone to the floor. Soon after, the cat brings the phone to Rebecca, who is irritated to find out what the girl was trying to do. Nicole explains that it was just a joke, but the young woman tells her to leave, because even though their mothers are in contact, they are not friends. To get revenge, Rebecca throws the girl's cell phone in the toilet and goes back to her bed, leaving Nicole angry. As the days go by, Tom helps his wife and daughter with their daily activities, thinking that if this is what he has to do to become human again, he will strive to be the best cat that ever existed. However, the billionaire's happiness is short-lived, and one day, David shows up at the residence, saying that Ian has secured several deals on Firebrand shares. Realizing that his company is in danger, Tom decides to hide in his son's file box, which takes him to the building, allowing him to reach his office. In doing so, the cat comes across Ian talking to one of his partners as they destroy one of the key documents that would ensure David's ownership of the company in the event of the billionaire's perishment. Outraged by Ian's betrayal, Tom waits until the pair leave, then climbs onto the model of the new building and manages to knock it onto the paper shredder. Hearing a noise in his father's room, David is confused and goes to check what is happening. Thanks to this, he finds the document that Ian destroyed and rushes to Madison's house, managing to recover a copy from one of her cabinets, where she had kept several company files since her divorce. In the morning, Ian visits the family home and tries to convince Laura to turn off Tom's machines, as he is sure that he will not wake up again. Enraged, the cat launches a ferocious attack on the madman, who panics. Laura quickly locks the cat in its cage and scolds Ian for acting so cowardly, since she knows he has other intentions. At that moment, Rebecca goes to class with her cat hidden in her backpack, and during the bus ride, she reads about theories of human reincarnation in cats. At the Firebrand building, David tries to gather the partners for a meeting, but is stopped by Ian, who orders the security guards to expel him from the premises. Unhappy, the man claims that he is the real owner of the company after his father, but the trader is not concerned about this and says that he cannot be as intelligent and powerful as Tom. At the cat store, Rebecca goes to talk to Perkins, and Tom is surprised to notice that all the cats there can talk just like him. After meeting, the young woman tells him about her theories that her father is watching over her through her cat, and upon hearing this, Perkins decides to show her something. The man then begins to prepare a record on his record player, but he ends up receiving a call and asks her to wait a moment. However, Tom wastes no time and turns on the record player, which plays the same song Rebecca used to dance to with her father. Seizing his chance, the cat goes to the girl, and together they dance excitedly, accompanied by Perkins. At that moment, everyone in the family receives a call from Tom's doctor and gathers at the hospital, where they discover that the man no longer has any brain activity. Soon after, Rebecca appears and tries to convince her mother that her father has been reincarnated in the cat, but she doesn't believe it and leaves the room, leaving the cat trapped in the backpack. At the same time, David apologizes to Tom for having failed miserably to protect the company and says he has decided to jump off the top of the building to end it all. Upon hearing this, the billionaire becomes desperate and tries to reach his son as he takes his father's badge and says goodbye to him. However, Tom does not allow this, and after escaping from the backpack, he rushes after David, but halfway there, he comes across Laura talking to the doctor and discovers that they are about to turn off his machines. Soon after, Rebecca asks her cat to dance with her again, so they can prove that he is her father. Although he knows that the machines will be turned off if he does nothing, Tom knows that his son needs help immediately, and remembering that Perkins had warned him about the possible sacrifices he would have to make, he follows the young man. This leaves Rebecca completely devastated, but the cat remains focused and heads toward the building, hitching a ride with a delivery man. David quickly enters the building through the garage, using his father's badge to open the doors. Upon arriving at the location, Tom tries to enter through the front doors, but is captured by one of the security guards, who tries to throw him in the trash. At that moment, Perkins appears, and after recovering the animal from the security guard, he takes it to one of the entrances of Firebrand. Thanks to this, Tom manages to enter the building, and when they encounter the intruding cat, the security guards at the reception try to attack it, but one of them ends up hitting his colleague with his taser. Seizing his chance, the cat runs to the camera monitor, drawing the men's attention to David, who is already at the top of the terrace. With everyone's attention focused on his son, Tom manages to get into the elevator with the security guards, who try to prevent the man from jumping off the building. At the same time, Tom runs to his son, but before he can reach him, David jumps off the top of the building. Without thinking twice, the cat grabs the wires from one of the reels and jumps right after him, but the wire quickly runs out. Soon after, Tom notices that his son is using a parachute and realizes that all he wants to do is get everyone's attention to confront Ian. When he sees the cat beside him, David is confused, and so that his son doesn't get hurt, he signals for him to activate the parachute. Thanks to this, he manages to descend safely, and realizing that his mission ends there, Tom says goodbye to David, telling him that he has always been a great man. At that moment, hundreds of fireworks are set off from the building, and as soon as he hits the ground, Tom wakes up in the hospital, embraced by his wife and daughter. At the same time, David lands in front of the press and shows the document of ownership of the corporation while declaring that Firebrand will always be a family business. Finally, the man states that Ian is fired, and while being applauded by everyone around him, he receives a call from his mother, who reveals that Tom has finally woken up. Nearby, Ian leaves in a rage, and halfway there, he is surprised by Perkins, who orders him to give up everything he is doing. However, the man does not listen and continues on his way, where he ends up being hit by a car. As a result, Ian is transformed into a cat and forced to live in that body forever, and becomes even more furious when he encounters Tom, who has come to Perkins' store with his daughter so they can adopt a new pet for the family. Excited, Perkins reveals that he recently rescued an old friend who will probably enjoy being part of that family. The man then shows them the same cat that Tom had been transformed into, and Rebecca is thrilled to know that not only does she have her father back, but she also has a new friend in her life. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.